I must think. Quiet while I think. I must think. Let me see.
I must think I got the wrong intro.
Yeah, I was wondering, going back to the studio. I don't mind, but I was going, didn't we run this last week?
We did, but
you have
that's
something
very
else?
weird.
You want to start over, say goodbye to the audience and come back?
No, I can't really do that because I don't have it here. But hey, happy Stooges, happy non-freeform Friday to a much darker topic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. The Stooges never really went dark, but
I don't know. Maybe they.
That was pretty dark. I mean, doing Nazi stuff, that was pretty dark for the Stooges.
True.
Right.
Very, very, very dark. Very, very Nazi. Bad Nazi. We don't like Nazis. How quickly can we go yellow? Jeez.
Are we yellow yet?
Probably, but craziness.
Wait, but the Friday thing was okay, right? That was monetized or no?
Yeah, you know what? We had no problems Friday.
Oh, that's weird. Okay.
No, we had no problems Friday, and you know what? Maybe it's because we had a sponsor.
Oh, we had a sponsor.
We had a sponsor.
Hey, the plot thickens, Hunley.
It does, but we're going to try this again. Okay, so this is another boomer moment, and again, we are going with our sponsor, which is ExpressVPN.
Virtual Personal Network.
Virtual Private Network.
Oh, Private Network. I was close.
Oh, getting close. No, this is awesome. It's awesome.
Virtual Private Network. Go on.
Yes. Okay, so I talked a little bit about what it was. So first thing I want to start with is, here is the ease of using the VPN, ExpressVPN. I have an iPad. Here it is. The app is open.
Okay, what does that mean?
It says that it's not connected. I press the button.
Right.
And it's connecting.
Oh, that's easy. You're saying there's no lube involved at all?
None. It literally connects. I'm connected now to Washington, D.C. So every packet on this iPad is going out through Washington, D.C. as if I'm somewhere else.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So
one button. If you turn it on, you turn it off. That's something really, really cool about it. As I told you before, the purpose of it is to keep your data safe, you're traveling safe, whatever you're doing. You and I are going to be in Dallas in November.
I mean, you have to tell everybody. We do have
to tell everybody.
You have the secret network, and now you're telling everybody. You make it easy for the spooks, bro.
Oh,
I am not going to be there. It's just Hunley's doing something. I don't know what he's talking about. Na.
Okay, so I got sucker, but I'll tell you what, in the hotel, I damn sure will be using ExpressVPN to be navigating the internet and not be, smearing packets all over the hotel saying, "Hey, look at me."
That sounds disgusting. What are you smearing packets?
Well, internet travel is a disgusting thing. Mean? IP, they're called IP packets. So it's like a bunch of mail that's going to you. So think of every bit being inside of an envelope that's flying in and out.
Packet smearing? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, definitely mail packet smearing.
Jesus, I'm learning a lot today, Hunley. Can we get on with the show, or we want to keep this? At what point do we do the show?
We do the show here momentarily. And on that note, thank you to ExpressVPN. Folks, there is a link in the description. There will be a pinned comment if you're on the rewatch crew. And it really does help a lot. They're super happy with this. And I know that it is something that we all can use to protect our
I'm getting it. I'll tell you right now, I'm hooking myself up to this.
Well, we're getting it somewhere. Anyway, on this part, obviously there was some plotting going on in 1963.
What?
But they didn't have a VPN to help them out.
No, they had muscle and guns. It was much more intimidating back in the day. They would seize your film. They took your film and they took whatever they could from you. Yeah, I was showing you that picture. There's a guy. I don't know if you want to start with. It doesn't matter. This is going to be all over the map today because there's so many people involved in this thing. I just want to show you. There was a guy named Elma Moore who was the muscle for the Secret Service. I don't know if you have a picture of this guy. He reported directly. There's Elma Moore. Now, Elma Moore is a guy.
Looks like a hard ass.
He was not there. He was not involved with the White House detail in terms of Dallas in the motorcade. Elma Moore was the guy who went to the Parkland doctors and told them to shut their fucking mouths about entry wounds and rear wounds blowing out the back of Kennedy's head. Elma Moore was the one who intimidated Dr. Perry into changing his statement that the throat wound was an entrance wound. And Perry was extremely intimidated by Elma Moore. Elma Moore was also the Secret Service agent that went to the local Dallas news stations and physically seized their footage. I just want to put that out there.
Well, look at it. I mean, I'm just saying, look at the dude.
I know.
No, he looks like he cracks skulls.
Yeah.
His shoulder width and his chest size. This is
he was the enforcer. Now, he reported to a guy named Thomas J. Kelly, who was the liaison later to the Warren Commission. Kelly was a cop out of Baltimore, later became a Secret Service agent. He's a guy with the hat and the glasses. He's kind of an older guy, Eric.
Yeah, I've got a few pictures of him.
Yeah, there he is back there. There he is back there. He looks almost like a priest or something. Yeah, there he is again. Kelly was the liaison. There he is. Yeah, to the Warren Commission. He was Inspector Kelly. When Elma Moore was confronted years later about intimidating people, he said on the record he was ordered to do so by this guy. That's why I'm putting him up there. Thomas Kelly told Elma Moore what to do. Kelly also was responsible for finding the Russian interpreter for the woman there in the front.
Dude, he looks like a spook himself. I mean, I could watch a spy movie and see this guy walking up and him being like an M character or something at a station. He just has that look.
Okay, so these guys, if we can get to Emery Roberts now and that Lawton footage that we showed at the airport, Eric, remember do you have that little piece of footage there?
Yeah, I got to remember the name of it.
We can start there with that Don Lawton being waved away.
The stand down?
Yeah, why don't we start there? Because that way we can, we go a little further here. If you can get this rolling, maybe not.
Such a pain in the ass to get rolling. Hold on. Is that the right one? Oh, no, this is actually footage I got of Francis O'Neill. We'll get that.
Oh, yeah, we could get to that later, O'Neill and Siebert. Yeah. Man, there's a lot to this episode. Okay, well, we don't need to see that. The point of the matter is, what I wanted to say is these guys who were drinking in the cellar the night before, drinking moonshine, show up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Some of them stayed till 5 in the morning. And one of the guys there was Malcolm Kilduff, who was the press secretary, who you see in the press briefing saying the bullet went through Kennedy's head. That was Malcolm Kilduff. The reason Kilduff is important is he was the third string press secretary for the White House press corps. The main guy was a guy named Pierre Salinger. And Pierre Salinger was sent on a plane with the cabinet to Japan. He was also taken out of the lineup, the A-list lineup, intentionally. Salinger was involved in arranging the motorcade and, doing things that were more hands-on. And Salinger was in every single trip that Kennedy ever went on, except this one. So he was put up into an airplane, not unlike Fletcher Prouty being sent to New Zealand. So a lot of guys were sent on missions to get out of here. Now,
I do have the footage, by the way.
Okay, go ahead. Let it roll. Just get out of the way here.
Now the motorcade will very shortly start to move out. Sheriff Bill Decker, Dallas County Sheriff, driving his own car, personally escorting it with the chief of police, the presidential car, moving out. The president and first lady. Big, beautiful Lincoln, followed by a carload of press.
There it is. Okay. There it is. Okay, so that's Don Lawton right there. He's being waved off. Lawton and Ripka, who's on the far left, were waved off the car by Emery Roberts. These two guys then went into the terminal, provided no support the rest of the day. They went to lunch. They're done. These two guys are now out of the loop. Now, let's get into another thing. They mentioned the front car, the lead car. This is never covered, so I'm going to cover it right now. It's never been analyzed before. This is a white hardtop Ford. That's the lead car in the motorcade. The reason the lead car is important in the motorcade is because its speed sets the speed of the entire motorcade. And this Lincoln is sandwiched between the Secret Service in back and the lead car in the front. The lead car in the front, which he just said who was in the lead car. And he mentions Dallas Police Chief Jesse Curry, who's driving it, which is true. Secret Service agent Win Lawson, who's in on the plot. He's one of the coup plotters, Eric, is Winston Lawson. He's one of the guys. Sheriff Bill Decker, Dallas field agent Forrest Sorrells, who is a peripheral character in this thing. And that's always been the list of people who are in that lead car. Even Wikipedia will not go any further than those 4 people. As you will now learn, there were additional people in that lead car. So you say, well, Mark, who else could possibly be in that Ford, that 1961 white hardtop Ford? Well, there was a guy named George Lumpkin in that car. And you say, well, who's George Lumpkin? George Lumpkin was Deputy Dallas Police Chief to Jesse Curry. He's a Dallas Police Chief. George L. Lumpkin is an important operative in this thing. And sitting next to him is Lieutenant Colonel George L. Whitmire. Here's Lumpkin. He reports to this guy, Whitmire. Now, Whitmire is an interesting character, and you wonder why Whitmire is in this car, Lieutenant Colonel Whitmire. Whitmire started a thing called the 488th Military Intelligence Detachment. This is not an official military organization. This was a spy militia set up by Whitmire and using members, ex-military guys in Dallas to fight communism. This is not the 112th Military Intelligence Unit, which was the legit unit out of San Antonio. This was an ad hoc group that no one's ever explored before that we are going to have an episode about separately of America's Untold Stories. These 2 guys, Lumpkin and Whitmire, represent the 488th Military Intelligence Detachment. And it's not a legitimate military organization. And I believe that they are involved in the coup to assassinate the president, representing military elements on the ground. Like James Powell was a legitimate 112th Military Intelligence Unit photographer. He was there and was in the Daltex building, and he was shooting photographs. That's from the legitimate 112th Military Unit. These other guys, the 488th, is a made-up, non-detached military unit having no connection to the Pentagon. And we'll get back to this later. I just wanted to get this out there as to who was in that car, because there's more than 4 people. Only 4 have ever been recorded in that lead car. The reason the lead car is important, which we're now going to get into, is the actual physics of this motorcade. Why is this motorcade different than all other motorcades? As we say on Passover, this particular motorcade is different in tons of reasons. And in those reasons and situations that we're going to explain, you will see a difference in the Dallas motorcade, not just the motorcades historically involving Kennedy, but the motorcades from the 3 previous days, from San Antonio, from Houston, from Fort Worth. Everything changes with the Dallas motorcade. You go, well, how many things can they change, Mark? Okay, well, let's start to look at it, Eric. Normally in a motorcade, there's a flatbed truck in front of the president's car. Why would there be a flatbed truck in front of the president's car? Well, on board are the White House photographers, on board are the newsreel filmmakers. And you see examples of this. I don't know if we have any film footage of this, but this is all around the world. The same presidential JFK motorcade has a flatbed truck in front of it. And this particular motorcade, this is all happening at Love Field, not the night before. That flatbed truck is sent to the rear of the motorcade, so they don't have any filming. Let's move on. 18 Dallas police motorcycle cops were assigned to protect this motorcade. 16 of those were stripped away. 14 the night before reducing it to 4. They have a special meeting the night before, literally the night before, to strip away 14 motorcycle Harley Dallas police cops from the motorcade. You can't make this up. Leaving 4 of them. 4. Of the 4, they strip away 2 additional motorcycle cops and tell the only 2 to stay to the rear bumper of the president's limo. Now, who does this? It's done by this guy that I gave, Roger Warner, who works with Lawson. Roger Warner is another Secret Service agent. He's working with Winston Lawson in the lead car. Here's one of his enforcers. This is the other muscle guy involved in this. This is the guy who's the go-between in the motorcade, moving these pieces around.
Look at that neck. Look at that neck. Dude.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And if you show pictures of Greer and Kellerman now, I think you'll see the difference of the enforcers versus the stooges. And I don't mean the 3 stooges like we showed at the beginning. Yeah, look at this is here, obviously Hill on the left, Kellerman in the middle, and that's the.
Well, you can see the size. I mean,
right. You're talking about
the middle.
Now, keep in mind,
badasses.
Right, Roy Kellerman in the middle. He is assigned to be the leader for the first time of this trip because of the 2 guys, Gerald Benn, who is the head of the White House Secret Service detail, Gerald Benn and Floyd Boring decide not to attend. And they turn it over to a rookie, he's not actually a rookie, but to run the show, who is Roy Kellerman, that guy in the middle who is sitting in the presidential limousine next to the guy on his left, who is William Greer. Now you say, William Greer, what could this guy be? This is a high school dropout born in Ireland who's almost 60 years of age, who's been a chauffeur his entire life. He's a member of the Secret Service. He has the intelligence of a cactus, and he is the driver of the limousine. Now, keep in mind, he also admits and says that the reason the taillights come on, by the way, is not that he hit the brakes, was that he operated in a parade or in a motorcade in low gear. And when he had to switch, he had to hit the brakes to put it back into normal drive. In detail, that's something nobody's ever realized before, what he was doing. So he hits the brakes. Of course, he doesn't admit this to the Warren Commission, but everybody saw the taillights. He hits the brakes, shifts it into drive, and then Kellerman tells him to get out of there. However, Kellerman has lied so many times that you don't know what he's talking about. In fact, Kellerman has stepped on his own testimony a million times. He has said that he never looked back at JFK, but there's footage of him looking back. He says that Kellerman says that JFK told him, "I've been hit, get me out of here, get me to a hospital." All kinds of long-winded statements, which nobody heard JFK say because he had a bullet in his throat. So nobody knows what the deal is with Kellerman, but he has contradicted himself so many times in this plot as to be a unreliable witness for anything, for any statements at this point. But getting back to the motorcade, the physics of the motorcade, and that's what I really want to focus for the next couple of minutes, because this arrangement is being done in real time on Love Field tarmac by the Secret Service. And this sets up the entire assassination. What's that?
On the motorcade, I've got stills and I have the bubble tops, but I don't have.
Okay, we're going to get to the bubble top in a second. Okay, here. All right. Okay, so this footage is right. This is good because it shows you a standard formation. I think this is out of Tampa earlier that month. This was what was arranged for in Dallas. This was the same formation. It's done all over the world for the president.
I noticed they're all standing on the car there.
Right. Well, he goes up and down. He would stand up and he'll go down. You know what I mean? But that was up to his prerogative.
No, I meant them. They're standing.
Oh, yes. Okay. So you have a combination of what they would normally do, holding on to the 2 back handrails and running alongside the car is done traditionally by the Secret Service when the car gets below a certain speed. They will automatically, intuitively jump off the follow car and run up and walk alongside the car as long as they can when it gets really slow. And they will then hold on to the back handrails, and then they will fall back onto the follow-up car. Now, just to hold on for a second, I just want to go into this motorcade thing before we finish. they take a general named Godfrey Mchugh. Godfrey Mchugh was Kennedy's chief military aide. General Godfrey Mchugh was a loyal JFK guy. He would sit in every motorcade between the driver and Kellerman, if whoever those guys were in that particular motorcade. And he would sit in the middle. Godfrey Mchugh was removed on the ground when they landed and put into a far back car in the back of the motorcade for the first time ever. He protested this to no avail. The Secret Service moved Godfrey Mchugh, the general, out. They said, why? They said, we want Kennedy to be unobstructed, oddly enough, to the people. But they really showed their Freudian slip by using the phrase unobstructed. Because that's exactly why the motorcade and the motorcycles were stripped out. That's why the film crew was stripped out, because sometimes the flatbed truck was high up to get a downward angle on the newsreel footage. They were stripped out. The motorcycles are stripped out. Godfrey Mchugh, his most loyal military aide, is stripped out. And now let's get to the bubble top. And I'm going to get into more of the bubble top here, because once they get to Love Field, there is rain all over the ground. There's rain, okay? And the clouds are breaking, but a woman asked for the bubble top, and that was Jackie Kennedy. And nobody knows this. And Jackie Kennedy asked for the bubble top because she was afraid of splashing from the streets during the parade onto her and the people in the car. And that was not insane what she was saying, because the ground was wet from the rain, and it was early and it was still clearing, true. But as we're showing here, despite what Emery Roberts said and despite the spin, what they did with the spin was they, like the motorcycles, that I didn't finish the thing about the motorcycles. The reason they told the Dallas police motorcycle guys that they had to stay back was because JFK, they blamed JFK every step of the way. That JFK requested that the motorcycles are too loud. He can't hear himself talk in the car, which would be fine, except this is the only place it's ever happened, is in this one Dallas motorcade. So they keep blaming each dead man in the process.
I mean, like that, those quieter motorcycles here?
Yeah, they're the ones with mufflers, right? So the excuse to the Dallas police motorcycle guys is that they can't hear them. So they're pushed back, which gives you a clear shot all the way around. And now you're getting into the bubble top. The thing about the bubble top is, if you can show the set on the ground, Eric, how it's assembled.
Yeah, that's actually different. This is the sequence. So let me go to the bubble.
Okay, yeah, go through this. No. You could go through the sequence. I don't care. Just to show how it was used, because what I wanted to say was
these are more of the motorcades.
In the third of all motorcades JFK was ever in, rain or shine. Rain or shine. This line that they only used it in bad weather is not true. And these photographs will indicate that it's not true. They used the bubble top all around the world. And it was done in 1/3 of his total motorcades. So I don't know if you need to see all these here, right? There's the half. This is the half bubble. This was used on occasion. This would have distracted some people. Here's the full bubble top. Came in about 12 pieces. It was like a kit. So you've got these metal segments that ran across it. This is him going to church. You'll see the motorcade there. It's the full bubble top here.
There's the kit.
There's the kit. Yeah, there's the assembly kit. You could order this at home, kids, and assemble the bubble top as you see fit. But the point of the matter is, there was one guy named Kinney who was in charge of the bubble top. Now, Kinney is a Secret Service agent, and you see him screwing it on later. But look at all these pieces here. These came out of the trunk of the car of the Lincoln, and when it opened up, there's the hard top, there's the semi-bubble, there's the top pieces. They screwed together with metal brackets, and like I said, they were used with inclement weather or sunny weather. It didn't really matter. And Kinney was the guy who decided. The whole storyline that JFK said, I don't want the bubble top, is a crock. The guy who claims to have decided it on behalf of LBJ was Bill Moyers. Bill Moyers said that he decided no bubble top, and he was an aide to LBJ. A lot of these Secret Service guys were running back and forth to LBJ's car on the tarmac, getting orders from LBJ. Just everybody has to know what's going on here. This entire operation is being run by the fourth car, which is the LBJ Ralph Yarborough vehicle that has Rufus Youngblood in the front seat. When the shots ring out, the LBJ said Rufus Youngblood reacted in microseconds and dove on top of him, protecting him. He then replaces these. Yeah, here's Rufus Youngblood in Australia. It didn't go well that day when they were visiting and they had the anti-war protesters throwing blood. There's some color versions of this, but Rufus Youngblood paid his dues, bro. I got to give it to him. He was a good old boy from Alabama. And most of these guys, you understand something, most of these guys merely fought in World War II, and they had no skills to make them Secret Service agents. As Bolden pointed out, Abraham Bolden, these are just a bunch of good old boys who might have been cops. They might have been garage mechanics, or have been in World War II. They had no special training to actually do what they were doing. And as Bolden pointed out, one thing in common was they hated Kennedy's guts. And they openly said that when they were together. And Bolden reported that in his reporting up the chain of command when he was in the White House detail briefly, because he wasn't there that long. They were also racist. There were also a bunch of other things. But one thing in common was they hated Kennedy for his civil rights programs and for his Bay of Pigs and for his supposedly pro-communist leanings, according to them. So there's animus there. I'm not saying the Secret Service came up with this on any stretch of the imagination. They are tools in this operation, but every single part of the assassination has the Secret Service involved in this. And nobody ever looks at the Secret Service. The closest anyone gets is, they had a bad day. You know what I mean? Everybody has a bad day. You know, you got to give it to them. They were drunk, hungover. They've been out all night. You know, they had a bad day. The reaction time was bad. They're involved in every machination of the assembly of the motorcade, the route, the seizing of footage, the going to the autopsy. And we're going to get down the line there, but I just want to complete the segment about the motorcade itself, because here's the bubble top at Parkland being put on Too Little Too Late. However,
that's afterward, isn't it?
What's that?
That was afterward, isn't it?
This is at Parkland, at the hospital. They're doing
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they put this on afterwards for reasons I can't even understand. They're taking it out of the trunk to put it on a car that's not going to,
maybe for shipping in to obscure the windshield. Who knows?
They will ship that, and interestingly enough, the same driver, Greer, will drive that car to Love Field and put it on a C-140 transport and take it back to D.C., where it's then shipped to Detroit to have the windshield changed. But the reality of it is, once they're in position to start the motorcade, that's where you begin to see the waving off by Emory Roberts of Don Lawton and Hank Ripka. That's where we started. That was not found out for many years until researchers got that footage from WFAA in Dallas, and that footage was not seized by Elma Moore. That's some of this footage, was not seized. What Moore did seize was the press conference footage where Perry, you now see footage of Perry with no sound talking in newsreel footage, which I think is at SMU or Baylor. I'm going to go down there and have a look at it the next time I go to Dallas. I'm going to go into the archives there at Baylor and SMU, because FAA's newsreel footage is in there. And I'm going to go through that. And I could sometimes film it off of their monitors, which I've done at UCLA here. I've done that before. So we may be able to have some for the show when and if we go to Dallas ever again. But the reality of it is the Secret Service is fully hands-on. Now you say, who's in the follow-up car? Who was in that car, in the Secret Service car? Well, there's hundreds of people back there in that Secret Service car. There's hundreds. There is Kenny O'Donnell, Dave Powers, George Hickey, who takes an AR-15 and blows the president's head off. Don't forget, in the wonderful book Mortal Era, which there's so many people in this follow-up car. This is not the one, obviously. We're talking about
but this is an example of all the president's detail.
Right, but if you look at the Alchin's photo, the famous Alchin's black and white photo,
of your friend George,
they're all turning around to look at it.
You got that Hickey.
Well, there's Hickey with the AR-15. Now Bauman.
Now it's an AR-15 or M16 in this case?
They keep saying AR-15. I've read it 500 times.
Okay, just
I'm military. I don't know how many more times I can read this thing. And it's not me, gun nuts. I'm just reading what's in every book. Every book refers to it. I know. You're going to have problems with it. I'm just repeating what was said. I don't know the actual gun. But Bauman, who was replaced by Rowley as the head of the Secret Service in late 1961, said that Hickey, and if he was there, he said Hickey should have been spraying that window with machine gun fire up in the 6th floor. He says that was the appropriate move. According to the former head of the Secret Service, this is not some, nut in a bar. He said they should have returned fire, and they didn't. And Bauman, to his credit, said, I don't know what was wrong with them that day, why they didn't move out of that car. Keep in mind, Emory Roberts tells everyone in that car to stand down after and while the shooting is going on. The only guy who bolts is Hill. Now you say, well, Hill is there on a fluke. The only reason Hill is there is because Jackie Kennedy specially requested Hill come with her as her personal Secret Service agent to Dallas. She had befriended Hill over numerous trips. And you know why? Because they were both smokers. And she would get cigarettes off of Hill and sit in the back of the limo smoking cigarettes with Hill, saying, please don't tell anybody I'm smoking. And that was their little secret. He was madly in love with her, by the way, Hill. Jackie, was obviously flirtatious and beautiful or whatever, but
sure.
Nevertheless,
I totally can relate to the smoking thing, by the way. Totally can relate.
Right.
Because it's a common thing for smokers to be like the first friends at any job. I've even gone as far as to say you might as well call them a group who's being prejudiced against. So they will hang out together. So smokers bond like crazy.
Yeah. So she would bum from him because she didn't have her own cigarette. So she was bumming smokes from him. Anyway, Hill is not supposed to be there, is the point I'm trying to make. And that's why when Robert says to stand down, he doesn't even think twice. He bolts for the car. Now, the guy, Reddy, who's on the other side, who's JFK's guy, he doesn't move because he listens to Roberts. And he's kind of a newbie. And he was one of the drinkers in the cellar. Eric, I don't know if you have any cellar footage or anything from the cellar.
I don't know. Maybe I might have some.
I don't know. Eric loves the cellar, and who doesn't?
If you're going to go cellar, you can have fun.
Yeah. Look at this place. This is where the Secret Service was till 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, we're going to get into this a little bit about the Secret Service because they lose some of their IDs in the cellar. And the reason this is important is for two reasons. We're going to get into two guys right now. During the shooting, we're going to get into Ed Hoffman, who is the deaf mute. I don't know if you remember Ed Hoffman. And there's the guy named Private Gordon Arnold. And Private Gordon Arnold was in basic training, Eric, in outside of Dallas. And he was 22 years old. He was on leave. He just got out of basic training, where he is on the grassy knoll with a film camera, not unlike Abraham Zapruder's 22-year-old, a private, right? Not unlike Eric Hunley back in the day. And he was used to hearing for 12 weeks people shooting over his head, nonstop. Get your ass down, shooting, crawling. They ever shoot over you and any of those things with a, yeah. Okay.
But not for like one day out of it or a couple days.
Right. Well, he had just gotten out of that the day before. That's what I'm saying. He's on leave from that. So he tries to go up on the trestle with his film camera, and a guy comes over to him in a suit and shows him a Secret Service ID and says, get the F off the bridge. You're not allowed up here. And there were other people up there, but they told this guy because he had the camera not to. They didn't say because he had the camera, but my theory was because he had a motion picture camera. So he was rebuffed by a Secret Service agent who showed him ID in a suit and told him not to come up here ever again. So he goes back down by the grassy knoll and he's got the camera. And this is kind of interesting because I'm going to tell you why. There's another guy up there named Ed Hoffman, who's the deaf mute. I don't know if people know who Ed Hoffman is, but Ed Hoffman goes up there. He's going to the dentist and he gets up on the triple overpass. He does get up there. And what Ed Hoffman sees is really important because Ed Hoffman, with his sign language, tells his father and his daughter, or later his daughter, he's 27 years old at the time, but he tells his father what he had seen. This is what Ed Hoffman says, and this is a deaf mute. He sees a railroad worker with a railroad bag and railroad clothes right behind the picket fence. Behind the picket fence is a man with a suit. The man with a suit is given a rifle that's assembled by the railroad worker, and this is the guy that does the shooting behind the picket fence. He sees this. He sees the puff of smoke. He hears nothing because he's deaf. He doesn't hear the motorcade. He doesn't hear anything. He's looking at it, and he says, my eyesight is better than normal people because I don't have hearing. I recently read that. I went back into the testimony of Ed Hoffman, which is fascinating. And Ed Hoffman sees the puff of smoke from the fence where I was exactly standing, Eric. Remember in the video that I shot? That's where Ed Hoffman sees the puff of smoke. And he's looking from behind the fence. He is up on the tower, on the overpass, looking down behind the picket fence. And he sees this guy take the shot, turn around, unhook and screw apart the rifle, hand it to the railroad worker who breaks it down, puts it into his bag, and walk in opposite direction. He also sees the guy with that suit deal with Gordon Arnold, the same guy. He sees that corroborating Gordon Arnold's story of showing him the Secret Service ID. And now there's a guy who rushes up there who is a police officer as everyone's rushing up to the picket fence where I showed in the video. His name was Officer Joe Marshall Smith, very rarely mentioned. Dallas police officer Joe Marshall Smith. Remember that name. He pulls out his gun, rushes to the picket fence like everyone else was doing, and he pulls his gun on that man in the suit and tie. And he says, "Who are you?" And he pulls out his Secret Service ID and shows it to Marshall Smith, who is now pacified by seeing that Secret Service
So
ID.
there's three witnesses then.
Yes.
What you're saying.
Yes, exactly. And there's more, but I'm just focused. There's actually five, but I'm just focusing on those three right now because they corroborate each other. And that's why the Secret Service recalled all their ID in December of that year and reissued ID because of A, the missing ID from the seller, or B, the fact they were in that plot together, and C, the CIA was the one printing their ID, as told by Sidney Gottlieb, the guy who ran their tradecraft operation at the CIA. Gottlieb said that they printed phony or real ID for the Secret Service on many occasions, and themselves. So that being said, you have two guys behind the picket fence, one dressed as a railroad worker. This is confirmed by Lee Bowers, who's up in the tower, by the way, and also now a guy posing as a Secret Service agent, who's the actual shooter from that picket fence. So again, you've got this Secret Service connection, is why I'm saying this. Not because that was one of the shooters, but
It's almost like a sniper spotter situation.
Yeah. And also the fact that this is a railroad worker who's able to leave the scene. Now, keep in mind, the Dallas cop, rushes up there and he goes like this. Here's the guy, Secret Service guy. He's got nothing in his hands, Eric. That's why the rifle was handed off to the railroad worker who went towards the railroad tower, and the trains were coming by, crossing at the same time. Slow 5-mile-an-hour crossing trains during this entire event. So he could have just gotten right onto one of those trains. They were moving so slowly through the train yard because that was the switching station back there. That's what Lee Bowers did, by the way. was he was a track switcher, and he was able to pull the levers to switch the tracks for the trains coming into that yard. Now, that being said, Ed Hoffman goes home and tells his father. His father says to him, if you want to live, shut your mouth. Don't tell anybody that you saw this. His father tells him this. He's not happy with this and goes to the Dallas police, right? The Dallas police tell him the same thing. He goes to the FBI. The FBI tells him the same thing, to shut his fat mouth. So you had his father. Okay, this is even better. They have a Christmas dinner in Ed Hoffman's house, and his uncle shows up, his father's brother. And who's his uncle? His uncle is a deputy police chief of the Dallas police, Robert Hoffman. He tells him over dinner what he saw, and Hoffman's uncle tells him to shut his mouth and not say anything, his own uncle. And he doesn't stop Hoffman. He's having trouble, obviously, because not everybody speaks sign language, can interpret sign language. But when he does, he doesn't stop Hoffman. And for some reason, I guess they figured we're not going to kill him. As he had his uncle on the police force, and his father had a floral shop, I think, in Dallas. And he was only there because he was going to the dentist that day when he stopped by.
Insane. I don't know. Maybe because of his handicap, they just didn't bother.
I think because of his handicap, I think they felt that he was not dangerous. You know what I mean?
Now, well, people were really prejudiced back then, and they even said deaf and dumb and things like that, which is obviously wrong, but they did.
Well, he himself said his vision was better than normal people, like it was 20/10 or something.
No, that makes sense. Well, because it compensates. He can't hear, he sees. So his vision would be very acute in comparison.
Right. I mean, you will see him, by the way, with his daughter in The Men Who Killed Kennedy, the 9-part series, the 9th part, which is banned in the United States, that you can only get in England. Part 9 is everything about LBJ. That's banned in the United States.
I think I might have loaded it on Locals.
Yeah, no, we have it. Yeah, but I'm saying as a point of sale item, the pressure on the History Channel, it aired once. And the pressure from the LBJ
wasn't it Betty Ford or the Fords complaining?
No, it was Lady Bird, and I mean there were Lucy Bird, Linda Bird, all the daughters, Bill Moyers, Valenti. They came at History Channel with hooks and tongs, bro. They melted them. They never aired that again. You know what I mean? But that being said, I mean, there's a setup here going on in this motorcade. Now you have Emory Roberts. Now let's get into the weeds about the physics of this, because now you're going to get into Greer not turning around or turning around, seeing Kennedy shot, looks at him twice, and doesn't advance the car. Reasons that are inexplicable. Okay. We know that Greer looks around. We could see that in the Zapruder film. We know that Kellerman looks around, sees what he sees, and doesn't do anything. Okay, this is when they stop the car. They then advance to Parkland. Now they get to Parkland, and what does Kellerman do at Parkland? He orders 2 stretchers at Parkland, and the first guy he takes out in a stretcher is Governor Connolly. You want to talk about protecting the president? The first guy they put on the stretcher is Connolly. After all, dear God.
And Kennedy's not officially dead yet either.
Well, okay, so Emory Roberts comes over, and this is unbelievable. Emory Roberts comes over to the car, and Jackie is hovering over with her head on her husband, right? He pulls her elbow back, says to Kellerman, "He's dead. I'm going with Johnson." That was the statement he made to Kellerman. And he gives up his position as being with the president. Now, he doesn't know the president's dead or not dead. He decides to switch loyalty in midstream when they get to Parkland to Johnson. I mean, it's kind of here he is. There's a shot of Emory Roberts, who's one of the masterminds of this on the ground machinations of what's going on the ground. That's Emory Roberts. He is 3rd in command. He's actually 4th in command, technically, because Kellerman is above him. He switches to Johnson and starts bossing Kellerman around. And Kellerman is this is going to not go well for Roberts later. We'll get to this. We're not there yet. This is a little later. But Roberts looks at Kennedy and says he's dead, and he barks at Jackie to get off him at one point, to get off him. So Kellerman brings out the 2 stretchers, and they take Connolly in first, and they take JFK in second on the second stretcher, which is bizarre. Another bizarre thing that happens. And then LBJ is in a special room protected by Rufus Youngblood and a few other Secret Service agents, now Emery Roberts, who switched allegiance and now swears allegiance to the new Godfather, who's LBJ, which is really bizarre. And now
Roberts is technically in charge that day, right?
Not technically. It's technically Kellerman. That's what I'm trying to say. Kellerman is technically in charge, but Roberts is the much more stronger personality. He's in charge of everything else. Kellerman is a rookie, essentially. Roberts has been doing this a long time, right? And Roberts takes advantage of Kellerman. Kellerman's kind of a weak sister. He really is. I mean, he doesn't know where he is. He's overwhelmed. He says Kennedy's saying all these things. They never said them. He tells Greer to step on it, to go to Parkland, to the hospital, through the PA system, through that handheld. Instead of saying it to him, he's a foot away. He's speaking to him through the device, to get to the hospital. I mean, it's just insane.
It is crazy.
Anyway, so you've got this situation now. I just want to go over the different things that they did. The absence of protective military. Let's go over that. They told the military to stand down because in every single other motorcade, the military shows up and lines the streets. Okay. They told them no need in Dallas. There are plenty of them in San Antonio, plenty of them in Fort Worth, plenty of them in Houston, not in Dallas. Number 2, the open windows. Let's get into the open windows. What you do is there's thousands of open windows in Dallas. Why? They refuse to put a guy on the roof with a radio. We're talking to a guy on the ground with a radio. The guy on the roof would then go down and tell the secretaries to close the window. That's the way it's done. Did not happen in Dallas. Okay, number 2. Number 3, the vehicles arranged in improper sequence that I just went over. Number 4, the utilization of the improper motorcade route, which we're going to get into now. When they do the motorcade route, this is one of the biggest controversies in the entire assassination. The motorcade route is linked to the selection of the Trade Mart as a site for the speech. This debate has been going on internally for years, and it's that same thing we talked about, Eric, like LBJ does. They all say the other guy approved. And this is this circular thing that we later see, or you see in the earlier episodes of LBJ, how they get away from this. And they say the other guy approved it, the other guy approved it, I didn't approve it, I don't remember who approved it.
Or Kennedy wanted it.
Or a dead person. As soon as Kenny O'Donnell dies in 1977, they begin to blame Kenny O'Donnell for everything. Every person that passes away over time is now assigned these different decisions that were made by other people. It's fascinating how they keep doing this. Kenny O'Donnell.
Have you read that in the books out of curiosity?
Yes.
Books in the 60s are saying one thing, and then all of a sudden,
absolutely,
in 75, it's something different.
Right. And they testified before the House Assassinations Committee in 1978. They changed their testimony saying Kenny O'Donnell told me that because he died the year before. Literally within 6 months, between 77 and 78, Kenny O'Donnell told them all to do different things. It's astounding how much Kenny O'Donnell told them in that period of 6 months. But the reality of it is they keep the parade route under lock and key. That this is not done anywhere else, only in Dallas. There's no secret to it. They now keep it under lock and key. There's a lot of debate as to what the parade route is, and I'm going to tell you why. The Bruno, the guy who's the advance man for the Kennedy team, selects, as does Forrest Sorrells, the Dallas Secret Service local guy, and others select the women's building in Fair Park neighborhood in Dallas as the site. There's Forrest Sorrells, yeah. Forrest Sorrells and Bruno and others, including O'Donnell, Special Agent Forrest Sorrells, they select the women's building. Now, why the women's building? The women's building is defendable by the Secret Service. It is a building with only 2 entrances, right? You can drive a car into the women's building. There's like a little courtyard in there. You
Mm,
could literally drive the car into there, and you would not have to go past the Texas School Book Depository. You wouldn't even have to go on Main Street because it's in the southeastern region compared to where the building is and Dealey Plaza, right? So you would not have to go to the Stemmons Freeway or Industrial Road there and go to the Trade Mart. So who starts demanding the Trade Mart? John Connolly. Why does he demand the Trade Mart? So they go to the Trade Mart, and the Trade Mart holds 1/5 the amount of people. The women's building holds 5 times as many people as the Trade Mart. The Trade Mart has catwalks all through it, all through the roof, catwalks, like catwalk, right? And it doesn't have 2 entrances. You know how many entrances it has? 42 entrances.
Oh, Jesus.
42 entrances.
I was going to say it doesn't.
No, that's what I thought. 40 entrances to the goddamn building. Indefensible. So Connolly gets into a fight with Bruno and others over this. And even early on, the Secret Service says, look, we picked the women's building. So you begin to see how they switch gears to force their hand to a point where Connolly and Bruno are in the same room and they're having a knockdown, drag out fight. And Connolly says, let me resolve this. I'm going to call the White House. Picks up the phone. He says, get me the White House. So they put him through to the White House. And he says, I'm here with Bruno, the advanced man. And he says that you want the women's building, but I and others in the Secret Service have selected the Trade Mart. And he goes, yeah, I know. I'm just trying to convince Bruno of that. Right. Okay, go on. So he says to Bruno, he said, I got off the phone. The White House agrees with me. Forget about it. And the guy goes, all right, whatever. He goes back to the White House, Bruno, goes back to Washington, goes into the White House logs. He faked the whole phone call, Connolly. He faked the entire phone call. Now, Connolly's going to get his own episode. And once we get into Connolly, you're going to see a lot of other machinery because he was Johnson's henchman. He was, he had Valenti and other guys, but Connolly had the gravitas, being governor. And once he moves up the chain of command, he originally helps Johnson steal elections as his campaign manager in Texas, become a congressman, then a senator. But Connolly begins to use his muscle in Dallas, and that involves the Trade Mart, and that involves the parade route, and that's why he fights so vociferously LBJ in the Texas hotel in Fort Worth the night before, having the screaming match with JFK over the seating arrangement in that limo. Nothing tells more than that argument, because JFK is like going, what is this about? You know what I mean? I can't have Rafe Yarborough, who, by the way, is sitting next to Johnson in the car with the vice president and Rufus Youngblood. And he says on the record in interviews, Rufus Youngblood never dove over that back seat onto Johnson. Johnson made the whole thing up. Never happened. Oh, yeah. Never happened. He said the car was too small. We were sitting back there crammed in. There was nowhere and no way that Rufus Youngblood came over the top of that seat. He said him and Johnson were listening to the intercom, and he goes, they wouldn't let me listen. They turned the volume all the way down. And Rafe Yarborough, this is the United States Senator from Texas. This is not a minor guy who had been in fierce combat in World War II, who claimed he smelled gunpowder on the ground level. And he said you could tell the difference of gunpowder on the ground level because gunpowder does not go down, it goes up. And he said, I smelled the gunpowder from the ground level. The idea that it wafted down from the 6th floor is absurd, Rafe Yarborough said, right? And two other guys said, both Kenny O'Donnell and Dave Powers said the shots came from the front, from the grassy knoll, from the picket fence, both those guys. And there was a guy who was the Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, who was friends with both Kenny O'Donnell and Dave Powers. And he said to Kenny O'Donnell, why did you ever change your position? And he said they wouldn't leave me alone, the FBI. So to get along, I changed my position, saying the shots came from the back. And Tip O'Neill said, I wouldn't have done that in a million years. He goes, what are you, insane? This is Tip O'Neill saying this, the Democrat from Massachusetts, who's, Kennedy. What's that?
I remember Tip.
Right. What I'm saying, this is in Tip O'Neill's memoir, he writes what I just said. that in his conversation with Kenny O'Donnell, of course, they were all friends with the Kennedys, and that's why Godfrey Mchugh is removed from the limousine. Godfrey Mchugh is the chief of staff, essentially the personal military attaché, and an old friend of the Kennedys and an old friend of Jackie Kennedy. He had been to school in France with her, going all the way back, and dated her when they were in the Sorbonne together as students. That's how far back. Yeah. That's how far back. Now, the guy who comes on, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but when the body is loaded onto the plane on Air Force One, the casket, it is Mchugh who runs up to the pilots and says, "Get this effing plane off the ground." And the pilot, I forget his name, Cecil something or other, he says, "I can't. The president has ordered us to stay on the ground." And he said, "My president is in a box in the back of this plane. What are you talking about?" And the guy, the pilot, sheepishly says, "Johnson." And he says, "What?" And he goes running up and down the plane looking for LBJ.
That's right. I
Remember this? There's
I remember this story.
Remember this story? And he finds Johnson in the bathroom, he says, of the stateroom of the president, having an anxiety attack, of all things, crying and weeping in the toilet. This is from Mchugh's memoir. Mchugh says he found LBJ weeping and crying and having a meltdown in the presidential stateroom. Now, he could have been faking it. I don't really know what that was about, but that's Mchugh's statement.
Yeah, and we covered this too in LBJ second
one, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Mchugh is a loyal guy. While everything is going on the swearing in, where he's bringing the judge up to swear him in, and he calls Robert Kennedy on the phone to really put the screws to Robert Kennedy, asking for the swearing in dialogue. And Kennedy says, "You're already president. What difference does it make?" Right? He's waiting for the judge. Mchugh, the entire flight, stands at attention over the body of his fallen leader. The entire flight, from the second he gets on that plane, he never leaves the casket. So all this bubamaisis about them switching bodies in the casket is a crock of shit, because Mchugh never left that casket. And he stood at attention the entire flight back to Washington, D.C., to land in D.C. and follow the body to the Bethesda Naval Hospital. Now, just jumping ahead again about David Lifton and best evidence, and we're going to list some of the books I gave you down below.
Yeah, they're in the description.
Okay, because there's a lot of books that involve this particular episode. I'm pulling from a lot of different sources. And two of the guys that follow this up are both Siebert and O'Neill. We're going to get to them in a second, but when we're going to get to Bethesda in a second. But just to backtrack to Parkland, what happens with the Secret Service is they take that body out at AR-15 gunpoint. They take that casket, which is on a gurney, forcing it past Dallas police, past Rose, the coroner, and they take that body out of the Parkland Hospital and put it into the ambulance and take it to the plane, where it's brought up the stairs. And the reason for that is they have to get the body to Bethesda Naval Hospital to fix that autopsy. The fact that they did this so quickly is indicative of the plot itself. The fact that all these people were waiting at Bethesda Naval Hospital is indicative that this was all pre-planned. What they have to do at Bethesda is create an autopsy, is not solve the bullet trajectory, but create a bullet trajectory, create an autopsy. That's why Humes and Boswell burned their notes. Now, we're going to get to that in a second, but just to backtrack a little bit, when they take the body at gunpoint, they're actually committing a crime, because Rose, as the coroner in Texas has the legal right to do that autopsy in Dallas. And if that was done in Dallas, none of this story would be alive today. None of this cover-up would have survived an autopsy in Parkland. They had all worked on the same body. They had all seen the entrance wound, as Perry had. They had all seen the back of the skull. 26 Parkland doctors had seen the blown out rear portion of the skull. 26 doctors had seen the pinhole on the right side of the temple where the bullet had entered from the grassy knoll. 26 doctors had seen the entrance wound in the throat that Dr. Perry did the tracheotomy over to insert tubes. All of those people were flipped by Elma Moore. All of those doctors were intimidated except for one. who will get his own episode in America's Untold Stories. And that's Dr. Charles Crenshaw, who never buckled. Never buckled. Now, keep in mind, LBJ is calling and telling them, later on from Washington, D.C., when Oswald is in the same emergency room, when Oswald is with the same doctors, that he sends a Secret Service agent to get a final deathbed confession from Oswald. And really what he wanted was any words that Oswald would say.
He wanted to make sure that
he was right. On the way out.
Final words.
Right. He wanted to say there was no final word because there was no deathbed confession coming from Lee Harvey Oswald, gut shot by Jack Ruby. But anyway, to digress a little bit, I know we're all over the map here, but I'm trying to keep it in some sort of chronological order. But there's a lot of people involved in this thing, folks. So I know. So, okay. You've got the utilization of the improper motorcade route, and I just want to go back to, because that dog leg going from Elm to Houston, from Houston to Elm, is not on any map. It's not anywhere. When Dallas police do their run through, they do not make that turn. Nobody makes that turn. That turn is revealed late the night before of the motorcade. Why? Who cares? What difference does it make? Why would you have to hide that dogleg route? There was nobody left in the parade route. There were no more spectators, Eric. There's nobody there. It's a bunch of stragglers who were left on Main Street who come running over and go up the grassy knoll. There's no logical reason, even from a presidential exposure of support and political reasons, to make that right-hand and left-hand turn, slowing down to, some people say, almost 8 miles an hour, and then stopping, Greer admitting he stopped by shifting gears, having to hit the brakes. So that's kind of been admitted. The reality of it is, there's shooters everywhere. There's a shooter in the Dow Tex building. There's a shooter on top of the criminal courts building. There's a shooter in the grassy knoll. I, of course, don't buy into the manhole crap, because you'd be looking at the bottom of a car. Every time I mention this, people go, no, it's a great vantage point to shoot from a drain on the curb. I'm going like, you ever been in a drain on a curb? I've been under a city street on a drain, looking through a drain. You know why? Because when we were growing up in Brooklyn, we used to play a game named Ring Olivio. And Ring Olivio was a game that went on 20 kids versus 20 kids, and you would hide anywhere. We would hide in storm drains to hide out in Ring Olivio. I have looked through a storm drain and seen the POV from a storm drain. You are not going to be able to see a guy's head in a car driving by.
Engine block would kind of get in your way.
What's that?
Engine block would kind of get in your
way. Of course. And also the George Hickey thing. Now, here's the thing. There's a guy who wrote the book about George Hickey called Mortal Error that we constantly have to debase. Now, the guy who co-wrote the book was a ballistics expert out of Baltimore, and he was the co-writer of the book. You know who his best friend was? I recently found out. Who's from Baltimore? Emory Roberts.
Of course.
You can't make this up. You can't make this up. I mean, the fact that the idea is that George Hickey, his gun went off and he shot Kennedy's head off with all these people looking on, of course, absurd. So I don't waste any time with it. But the parade route dogleg is only put into the public knowledge by Bill Moyers and his assistant. And all of this kind of traces back indirectly to LBJ, which is where I was going with this. Now, if he miraculously had survived this thing, JFK, he would have had to have gone on Saturday to a wonderful, massive outdoor Texas barbecue at the LBJ Ranch. So I think that would not have been the greatest barbecue of all time. However, he was not going to be allowed to leave Texas alive, I think, was the real bottom line, in this storyline. So, I mean, Emory Roberts, when these people testify under oath to the Warren Commission, you've got this guy who I don't know if you have the picture of Rowley and LBJ that I gave you I want you to take a look at the body language of these two cats. He's giving them a pen or something that he signed some bill with. Look at this. Rowley becomes
adoration.
Yeah. Rowley never leaves the side of LBJ the entire presidency. Now, there's a guy named Emory Roberts. You showed this before. There's a guy we're talking about. The guy, Emory Roberts, if you could show the picture you showed earlier, or beginning to show, of Emory Roberts with LBJ.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to tell you why this is important. I don't know if we need. Okay. Emory Roberts is taken by LBJ and feminized by LBJ in the White House, and he is given the job of secretary outside the office, sitting at a desk as a secretarial job, as the appointment secretary at a desk, and is completely defrocked and dehumanized by LBJ, as he does to people he can't bully or kill or buy off. He makes Emory Roberts a personal girl-like secretary outside his office. And the press notices this. In 1963, they begin to notice, and into 64, that the great Secret Service agent, Emory Roberts, is now a secretary. And he's still in the Treasury Department. He's still in the Secret Service. And LBJ says, this is what I want him to do. And he makes Rufus Youngblood his superior, because he does not trust Emory Roberts, because he knows that Emory Roberts is a Judas Iscariot who ratted out his own president on orders of people around LBJ. This is like, keep your enemies close, Eric. You know what I mean?
Yep. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Right. So, I mean, meanwhile, through this whole thing, Don Lawton and Hank Ripka are back at the terminal having lunch, the two Secret Service agents that would have been assigned to the car. So now the driver halts the vehicle, the motorcade route. There's no response by the agents. We got that part. Greer washes out the limo. Now, this is just my own list of oddities. Greer, for reasons that are inexplicable, gets a bucket of hot water, soap, and a giant sponge at Parkland and begins, nothing better to do than to wash the blood and bullets and all the crap out of the back seat of the limo. And
it was dirty.
It was dirty. And then, of course, like Kinney, I don't know if you have that photo of Kinney putting the roof on. You see that, right?
Yeah. What's his first name again? George? Sam Kinney. I got a couple shots of him.
Right. Yeah, that's one shot. I don't know if that's him on the left, but that's one of the Dallas. Yeah, there he is.
Yeah, that's him on the left.
Okay, yeah, same shot. Right, different angle. Right, there it is. You're right. Yeah. So he puts the roof on, right? Okay. So now people are starting to walk around, and what do they see? They see a bullet hole through the windshield. And this becomes a problem. So the Secret Service sees them, and they're nurses, by the way. These are not just random passerbys, because these nurses have testified on camera about 10, 20 years ago that they saw the bullet hole through the windshield. And they said, others did too, but there's a couple of nurses who were quite emphatic, who are now medical doctors, by the way. And they saw a bullet hole that you could put a pencil through. Okay, so the Secret Service gets hip to this, and they go, get the car out of here. All of a sudden, they jump in the car, which is, again, Greer, and he floors it in reverse to get it away from these prying eyes who are seeing the bullet hole in the windshield. And that bullet hole, I think, that's the one that hits him in the throat. It goes through the windshield and goes into his throat, does not traverse. And I've had different people tell me that when you're using some of these suppressors, you might, for reasons I don't understand, use half-load bullets, less gunpowder. That helps suppress. Yeah,
because you're trying to eliminate the sonic boom.
Yes.
So less gunpowder means it's traveling slightly slower, so it's not making it.
This has been my inexperienced theory for years. I didn't have the knowledge technically, but now others in the comment section have begun to tell me why. And so I don't look like a crazy person, because people were saying I was nuts for years, because I didn't know the technical reasons for what I was saying. All I know is scientifically, 2 of these shots did not traverse the body. It was a scientific fact. You could spin it any way you want. The shot to the right shoulder goes in 1 inch. The shot to the throat from the front goes in 1 inch. Those are scientific facts. I don't know what gun would do that. Hey, Vince, welcome aboard. By the way, we put Vince's book in down below. He is the godfather of Secret Service research, and I was going to say this at the end. Glad to have him on board. The majority of this research is Vince Palomara. He is the godfather of this area, and I recommend his book, Survivor's Guilt, over all these other books. Secret Service, Joe Padilla, Charles Taylor, notable. That's okay. Thank you. I didn't know that. And I forgot the nurse's name, but other people, as Vince has pointed out, have noticed a bullet hole through the windshield. And also, I don't know where the dent comes from. As Vince has shown, there was no dent in the metal framing of it days before. So that was relatively a great find by Vince. So we get into the car being dismantled, the false testimony of Greer, the seizing of the newsreel footage, I believe, by Elma Moore, who goes to seize the Perry footage and other footage, taking the body at gunpoint, taking the autopsy photos. Now, here's where I wanted to get into a little bit when we get back to Bethesda, because what Best Evidence and Lifton and some of these guys suggest is multiple bodies, Tippett, all this stuff. They did not have to mail Tippett's body to Bethesda. Bethesda was a medical school. There were plenty of bodies, plenty of brains, plenty of skulls. And I believe what these orderlies are talking about is the delivery of bodies to the autopsy from Bethesda Medical School itself, not from a plane, not from Dallas, not Tippett, not all of this other stuff. These are bodies that are going to be used for the phony photographs that they're going to take in the autopsy, and the brains and everything else. These, I believe, are seized again by the Secret Service, and they're the ones with their photographic lab. They're the ones that doctor the autopsy photographs, in my humble opinion. Now, they have two dogs of war on them. One of them, Francis O'Neill, the other on Siebert, who are the FBI agents assigned to Kellerman and Greer. There's obviously Siebert. Yeah, there's Siebert. They called him Cy for some reason. And that's O'Neill or Francis O'Neill?
That's Francis O'Neill. And I have his, I have an interview clip from him too, if you want his own words.
Yeah, go ahead. Put it up. Roll it up, my friend.
Receipt signed by two FBI agents acknowledging the acceptance of a missile removed from JFK's body. This missile receipt has been a mystery for 16 years and a prime piece of conspiracy evidence. Francis X. O'Neill is one of the FBI agents who signed for the missile. He's now retired and lives in Guilford. For the first time on television, O'Neill speaks out about the missile controversy.
Yes, the missile was two pieces of fragmentations of a bullet which was taken from the head of President Kennedy at the autopsy in Bethesda Naval Hospital.
Why would it be labeled a missile if there were two fragments?
Oh, I think you'd have to ask the naval corpsman who typed it up at the particular time. There were just two fragments. I accepted the package, possibly because it was just one very small package. You might have thought that there was just one missile there.
All right, let me get this straight. There were two fragments in the packet that was handed to you, but you signed a receipt for a missile. Now, that's not very exact, and FBI men are usually very exact.
Oh, I think under the circumstances at the time, yes. The corpsman was let in just for this one specific thing, to type up a particular receipt. And I knew what I was getting. I was getting two particular fragmentations.
So you think the Warren Commission really had the whole thing under control?
Well, if you mean under control, did they do an exhaustive investigation? Yes.
Bill O'Reilly, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Early Bill. Bill will later show up in Palm Beach. You're looking for George de Mohrenschildt the day of the, or he claims he does. I mean, I don't know if he actually showed up that day, but yeah, he was all over this thing at that time period. But one of the things, the revelations from Destiny Betrayed and through Oliver's recent thing with Jim DiEugenio is and Doug Horn is that there was a gallery, and they were running the autopsy. In that gallery was all the military top brass. And in that gallery was Admiral Berkeley, who was Kennedy's physician, and there was also Galloway, another admiral. But one of the guys we did not know who was in that gallery was General Curtis Bombs Away LeMay, who was smoking a cigar, a celebratory cigar, some may suspect. And when an orderly or one of the doctors, I think it was either Humes or Boswell, said, "Can you ask that guy to put out that cigar?" He was ever smoking a cigar, and one of the interns went over, and he just blew smoke in their face. That was Curtis LeMay. That was Curtis LeMay. This autopsy was being directed by the gallery of military brass, and it was set up so quickly that one would have to be ridiculously naive to believe that this was a legitimate autopsy. This thing was preordained, pre-set up that quickly to have Paul O'Connor was the orderly. Yeah, Paul O'Connor was one of the two orderlies. And O'Connor says, these bodies were being brought in. I believe that these were from Bethesda, from the school. I believe they were brought in, but I believe those were used for those phony photographs of the autopsy, and that they were looking for missiles, bullet fragments in the Kennedy head, which is acknowledged. And that's what he's talking about here. But getting back to Siebert and O'Neill, both of them treated Greer and Kellerman as suspects. And if you read their 302s, they have their height, their weight, everything, their age. They're written up as suspects by Siebert and O'Neill. It's kind of fascinating. And there is almost an emotional tug of war in that autopsy room between these four guys. You know what I mean? Of one of them has to be there at all times. You know what I mean? So I don't know if they're there at the same time, but one is on Greer, the other one's on Kellerman, but there's one there the entire time. And one of the biggest...
So they were straight up then?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they've been straight up till the day they died. They never buckled in what they saw, which is, shenanigans in that autopsy room. You know what I mean? And their discrediting of the photos comes from Siebert and O'Neill. I guess they believed that they would cooperate, but they didn't cooperate, because years later they would speak out publicly on numerous occasions, as Vince is well aware, on film, on numerous occasions. So that's one of the magical loopholes in the cover-up is those two FBI agents there on the Secret Service. But to focus on the Secret Service and not the FBI, the autopsy photos are then seized by the Secret Service. All of this stuff, and when the Secret Service shows up to testify years later, as Vince knows, they said they destroyed all their records of all the other fall trips and JFK motorcades because the House Assassinations Committee wanted to see the formations of the motorcade in those earlier trips in Tampa and in Texas and in Chicago. And they said, I'm sorry, we've destroyed all our records, which is, that's a little suspect. I mean, what's it to them? And recently, Siebert O'Neill witnessed wounds that went against visual history. Yeah. The situation that I found from Bolden recently, which I did not know, is that when Chicago was supposed to happen, when Kennedy was supposed to go to Chicago, the Secret Service agents also drank until the early wee hours of the morning in a Rush Street bar where Bolden and Chicago cops both castigated the Secret Service agents, saying they were putting the president's life in jeopardy. So this situation at the cellar was replicated in Chicago on Rush Street. I did not know that until Bolden made a statement in an interview that I found the night before about right here. In that situation, when they come to Chicago, agents went down on Rush Street and had a drinking session all night long until 6 a.m. There it is. That's from a documentary, a short documentary on Amazon about Bolden. There's going to be hopefully a longer documentary involving Abraham Bolden and the
rumors. Rumors.
Again, thank God we got VPN because they won't find out our secret rumors. But
ExpressVPN, by the way.
ExpressVPN. VPN, the other VPN is a crock. ExpressVPN is really the way to go. So anyway, in terms of Secret Service, a lot of material here, folks. I know I've been going over this pretty quickly, but there's just a lot of names and a lot of stuff I'm trying to cram into the second episode. It took me years to compile all the existing still motion photos of the Motorcade. Yeah, often very stark. And
it's in 95 they destroyed the records? Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, the Motorcade footage, if you go to Vince's Vince Palomar,
he's got all kinds of stuff. Matter of fact, I think that clip with Bill O'Reilly is
an American hero. I mean, Vince Palomar is an American. I think he's also a great guitar player, but that's a separate issue. But
that Bill O'Reilly clip with
the Bill O'Reilly clip is
I think that might have come from Vince's site. I don't remember.
Right, and also Survivor's Guilt by Vince, one of the best books. I think he might be in Dallas when we're there, but at a competing convention. But nevertheless, I recommend strongly that you go to his website, his YouTube channel, and also buy the book Survivor's Guilt if you want to follow up on this. For our purposes, we're trying to cover as much as we can, and just wanted to focus on the part 2 of the Secret Service today. There's other sources besides Vince. We'll link in those books, which Vince acknowledges also. I mean, he acknowledges the stepping stones of the people who got there before him, and we are building constantly with new research all the time, as and Vince is aware of. But yeah, I mean, this episode, I believe, will demonstrate to people how much blood is on the hands of the Secret Service. You know, it's far more than we had a bad day. That's all I could tell you. They had a very bad day, but they were involved in this thing from the ground up. So that's just my opinion, and it's the opinion of other people who did this research. So,
no, it's amazing. But,
by the way, also just the getting rid of the ambulance. I just wanted to add that in. I don't know if the fake grand mal epileptic seizure guy took the ambulance, but right, Vince, there was no ambulance there that day in case anything should go wrong, which apparently it did.
Cool. Okay, Vince, I'll try to remember, or definitely comment below. I'll pin any comment you have if there's any references. Well, I can't pin, but just comment. I'll make sure I get it in the description.
Thanks, Vince. Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Everybody check them out. We got some super chats in.
What?
Yeah, cash.
Adam Child, $20, downtown Dallas. Mark, thanks for getting back to me on Twitter about Ted Cruz's dad, Dorothy Kilgallen. Told you I'd send some money. Would love more info on Ted Cruz's dad. There's not much about Ted Cruz's dad, to be honest with you, Adam. I told you what I know. Those photos of Ted Cruz's dad. Ted Cruz's dad is a spook, but he came out of Cuba, so a lot of them were. You know, sure. VP is awesome. Okay, well, we're going to find out. And I've got VPN Express. Okay, 1776. Very nice. What else you got there, Hunley? 10 out of 10 right off the bat. You folks are great. Thank you for the laughs, especially. Yeah, I mean, you either laugh or cry. You know, some people are upset that we joke around, but look, I mean, this is not a morose channel. I mean, this stuff is, you either laugh or cry over this crap. You know what I mean?
Oh, this is a good point. You did insult the intelligence of all cactus or cacti on the planet. Yes, devil is in the details.
Yes,
there's a lot of details.
Yes, there's a lot of details here. And the shifting gears, as Vince is well aware, the shifting testimony of these cats is breathtaking. And like I said, everyone who dies gets blamed for every little loophole in the assassination. Whoever dies last is going to be blamed for everything. You know, kind
of like Alec Baldwin, right? You know,
yeah. If you're dead, he'll blame you. Yeah. You guys,
Smarty Matt, the teacher. Thank you.
Mind-blowing story. I hope it wasn't too convoluted, people. I tried to.
No, I think it went pretty well. And Pasha, yeah, I know about the dumb meaning a mute, but people took it literally too.
Oh,
they were very uncivilized. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's not. I have to confess, I worked on a film called Dumb and Dumber. I didn't work on the film. I lived with a guy named Sidney J. Bartholomew. We were roommates together in a mansion up on Argyle in Hollywood, and he was the art director for the Farrelly brothers. So he, at gunpoint, forced me to help him make those 2 furry puppy vans with the flappy ears from Dumb and Dumber, and I had to glue the fur onto 2 vans with him on a Sunday and Saturday afternoon for that movie, Dumb and Dumber. So I am officially guilty for perpetuating that phrase.
All right. Just a coffee or probably just a sugar now?
Yeah, $7.99 gets you. I don't know.
Right, look at this, Georgina. Coming in strong.
Unbelievable. I wonder what it must be like on a Secret Service. I know. Hill, as Vince is aware, Hill went along with the party line. So he is not without some blood on his hands. You know, he has changed his testimony also to fit.
Hill, I think, went to FBI later, if I recall, it's the same guy. And then was involved in one of the early bank robberies that turned into a massacre or something.
Oh, that I don't know. That might be a separate episode of Clint Hill.
I mean, he seemed like a really honorable dude.
But he changes his testimony at various times in history.
Which is hard to watch. I mean,
It's
I
hard
think
to
on
watch.
that day, at a
Yes,
minimum,
his instinct was correct. His absolute training kicked in, and Emory Roberts couldn't stop him. What do you think about Officer Tippett being badge man, who was seen taking? Well, he would have to get over there and drive over there.
Yeah,
I think he was honking the horn at Oswald's apartment rooming house. I think that's who Tippett was in that car. I don't know the physics of it, but I think that was Tippett for some reason outside. Clint Hill did it for the money. Yeah, he's right. He's right.
Yeah, I guess a fourth book.
Yeah, he's right. Yeah, once you get into a fourth book, or even a second book of alien abduction, like once you're alien abducted, you can't have a second book. Said the back of the head was gone. Right. That's what I meant. Right. Yep. Wow. That's right. I forgot that. Yeah, a lot of these guys are doing it for the money, but obviously the best, and Vince would have to admit, is Mortal Era. I mean, that's the greatest book of all time of disinformation, But yeah. So okay, so where are we now? We are
again, everybody's got to try to keep Oswald safe.
Okay,
because you never know where he's going to be.
Right.
He could be
I just
kidnapped.
want to remind people that years later they came up with a Floyd Boring Award for the best Secret Service agent. I don't know if Vince knows that there was a Floyd Boring Award to put you in the Secret Service Hall of Fame. I think. But go on. You got the dog, right?
Yep, and then we have the Grow Bear.
The Grow Bear. Yeah, that's a good one.
We've got obviously the polo.
Right.
We've got the bucket hat. Bucket hat. Cups, all kinds of cool stuff.
Are those cups back? Did you ever get the thing back with the straw, that camping cup?
No, I
okay.
I don't know if it's been in stock or not. It's like kind of like the teddy bear wasn't in stock forever.
Right. Interesting.
And it finally.
Well, sometimes I have to buy books that are of no value to find out they're of no value. Like that Walker book, which is 9 million pages, says Oswald did it, but there's tidbits of information of all these books, like that Mortal Era book, which people gave me funding for, the Walker book through PayPal, allows me to look through it and to see the insanity in some of these disinformation books, not unlike our friend who I don't want to mention.
The one who runs the other conference that I was almost looking
the other
at.
Conference. You almost went to that conference, but
I didn't know. I was like,
in other words, what I'm saying is, with the PayPal book fund, I have to buy the stupid books, because in the stupid books may be factoids that are real, and in fact, the bait is real. They don't put out these disinformation books without having a limited hangout in the book of information. The female co-author left her high school sweetheart and father of 2 kids for a 90-year-old Hill. Wow.
Okay, so now he's motivated. Now it's making sense.
Right. I like this. But with the PayPal book fund, it allows me to get books like Eric has, the General Walker book, and to look through there. And all of these books have some truth to them. That's what I was trying to explain.
Everybody has this one.
Yeah, everybody has that one. I just had to buy. What did I just buy? Oh, Bloody Treason. Noel Twyman's book, which I had on Kindle, and that's $100 crazy book. I mean, a lot of these are out of print, but the Kindle books just don't cut it for me in a lot of ways, because I got to go back and forth, and it's maddening if you're a researcher. I mean, they're fun. It's fun to read a novel on Kindle, but I mean, to read a book for research, it'll drive you insane, as Vince probably agrees.
And your LeMay books cost a fortune, don't they?
The LeMay book, yeah, I got to get the autobiography of LeMay. But I just want to thank everybody for the PayPal and Venmo book fund money, because it really is very helpful. And you can follow me and Hunley on Twitter. I'm at Lord Buckley. And what about locals, Eric?
Unstructured.locals.com. It's growing. We've crossed over 7,000 people following us there.
Right,
which is amazing.
I put up some of the Ruth Payne love letters to Marina. There's a lot more. I was busy. I'm going to put up more of them for locals only. And if, like I said, if you read between the lines, you'll see what I'm talking about in the Ruth Payne Marina love letters, which we'll put up on locals. But nevertheless, how much could it cost you to join locals, Eric?
$5 a month or $50 a year. So
right.
You get to even save there. And thank you very much, Dre D.
Dr. Dre. Are we going to be exclusively on Rumble like Barnes and Viva, or what are we going to do?
You know, if somebody approaches us with cash or a check, that could happen. But at this point, we're on YouTube and we are on Rumble. And actually, I really should go look at Rumble right now while we're talking.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned Rumble, because I talked to Viva today, and he said that he's going to start on YouTube and then shut it down and go to Rumble during the course of. Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, I'm just seeing if we have. Oh, we do. We have a Rumble rant.
What?
From Bulgadari. Most interesting series on the web. Thank you very much.
Wow. Well, even Vince likes it.
Yeah. Which is an awesome deal.
That's an awesome deal.
I mean, you know, he helps.
Well,
we're bringing our credibility up.
Yeah, I mean, Max Good likes it. You know, there's a lot of people who like it who are research people, which is fine. You know, I mean, when I worked with Oliver Stone, I met a lot of these people. You know, when I was doing my research on Oswald, and these people dedicate their lives to this. I'm, you know, basically a journalist who has not really dedicated my life to this, but I've read all their works. And that's kind of me just regurgitating and putting it into a storytelling fashion of these people's research. You know, I mean, I've done my own. Obviously, I've made some dents in this community, but not as much as people like Vince who've dedicated their lives to it.
Oh, for sure. And I'm a dilettante, so.
Beat Mark II of Ukrainian. I don't know what that means, but a lot
of no. What's his nose? The Jordan Belfort apparently picked up one of the Ukrainian refugee women. I'm guessing that's what they're saying.
Oh, right. Yeah, I did notice that. That was kind of funny. Yeah, that was my idea.
I know. You talked about it. You said, "Look, my doors are open. If any of you."
Wow, I should have contacted the Ukrainian embassy.
Maybe.
Even
instead, you were looking for Gavin Newsom. Gavin McGinnis. Boy, there's a slip.
Yeah, we're closing in on that. That's a separate area. We don't have to talk about it here, but
no.
There's an investigative journalist in me that just doesn't buy into hoaxes per se. It could be proven wrong if there is a hoax, but I'm going to keep acting as if something else happened.
All right. Well, on that note, I don't know what we have Friday, but I'm sure it'll be amazing. Probably some sort of a casual Friday show.
Really?
Yeah, I think we're kind of trying to do that a little bit more, right? Heavier on Tuesdays, more casual, personal story or Q&A or something laid back, free form, whatever.
Well, if people in the comment section, Eric and I will respond, to the comments. So that's helpful. If you want to join us on Locals, like Eric,
sure.
You could do it for free and see what's up there and dabble in it. I mean, obviously, other teams have Locals too, like Viva and Barnes and the Joanne that we recommend, right?
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not unusual because when I first heard of Locals, I just said, what the hell's Locals? I didn't know anything anyway.
It's like talking to Mark about VPN.
Right. Yeah. I'm like that. I just have this boomer disease. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know. I'll just tell you this. Woody Allen says to his mother, why did God make Nazis? And she says, I don't know. Go ask your father. So he goes to his dad and says, Dad, why did God make Nazis? And he goes, how can you ask me that? I don't even know how a toaster oven works. And in there lies the essence of boomerism, my friends.
At least now. On that note, thank you very much. Everyone, please consider checking out the sponsor. It really does help us out a lot. And it is a good product that I think you'll enjoy. It's 3 months free. Can't lose on that one.
Right.
So until next time, see you at Locals.